Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. For those of you with me for the first time, my name's Melissa Reed and I'm a mixed media artist from Pennsylvania. So I've got a couple things in front of me today. I have that cradled wooden board that I have gotten off of Amazon. That's a 6 by 12 and there will be a link to that and all of my other items that I'm using today in my description if you're interested. And I also have that pink and black sheet of paper. This is actually an old roll-off sheet from when I was doing some gel printing, but I really liked the color combination and I saved it so that I could use it as an inspiration for a piece in the future, and today is that day. And it's just interesting to think about where our inspiration comes from because it can really come from just about anywhere. And that's always kind of a thing that I think about. People ask me that all of the time, and it comes from things like this. Maybe I'll see a color or a shape or something, and that gets turned into a piece of art. So to start this piece, I've got Liquitex Basics Mars Black and Rose Pink, and those are the two colors that I used in the inspiration piece as well. That is actually a gel print that I made out of some black and white stripes, and I'm going to actually kind of show you a little bit of that later because, well, you'll see here in a minute. But while that's not in the inspiration piece at all, every time I saw that piece and thought about those colors together, I saw those black and white stripes in my head as well. So I thought, we're going to put those in there and see what happens. Now, I am adhering those down with some of Liquitex's matte medium. I'm putting those down as my first layer, and I'm doing that on purpose because while I want some of that design to be visible, I definitely don't want to see edges, and I don't want a lot of it to be too prominent on there, so it's just going to kind of be peeking out behind the paint, if that makes sense. And you will see once I get that pink paint down there kind of what I'm talking about. So for right now, I am just gluing those down. That got a little tear in it, but that's okay because I'm going to be painting over a lot of it anyway, as I said. I glued those down and I put another coat on top of them just to make sure that they are really good and secure on there. And then I am just going to go through with my rose pink there and cover the majority of that board up. And you can see I'm covering up a lot of the paper as well because, like I said, I just want little bits of that to kind of be peeking through. And once I have the first coat of pink down, I decided to put actually a little bit more down because I was still seeing too much of the stripes, which I could have let go and just used it as like a different kind of tone or more pattern, but I like the way this ended up with just kind of having those poking their little heads out through the paint. So when I first started doing about this piece, I hadn't actually even really noticed, but you'll see here in a moment, I'm going to pan back over to the inspiration piece, but there's a little patch of like a teal blue there that is kind of in a square shape, and I really liked that, so I thought let's add something like that to this as well. So I've got some scrap paper there and I'm just cutting out like a rough rectangle shape, and I'm going to just use that as a template. I'm actually cutting out two of them. I've got that larger one and then we're going to do a smaller one and just put those in various places on that board with that bright aqua green, I believe is the color on that teal color there. I believe it's bright aqua green. I'll double check and put that in the description for you. But I really liked the way that looked together. I think that was the exact color that happened to be on that inspiration sheet. When I held it up there, it looked pretty close. But even if it wasn't exact, it really kind of worked. Now, I thought that the best way to apply that was going to be with this card, but it definitely was not. And you can see there I've got a little bit of a mess on that bottom where it bled through, but because it's acrylic and still wet, I can just wipe that right up. Then I decided to be a little smarter about it with the subsequent ones and just use a paintbrush. And when I'm doing anything like with stenciling around the edges, I try to go from the outside into the center. That way I can avoid getting that paint underneath there. Just going in and filling in some areas where I thought it could use it and just randomly placing these. I don't have a design necessarily in mind. I have an overall feeling in mind, if that makes sense. If you've watched my videos before, you've heard me say that I'm an intuitive artist, which to me means I just start and kind of see where things go, and I will react to what is going on the canvas right now, and that'll inform my next step. So with this one, I did have that inspiration sheet, so that helped me with things like color, but everything else was kind of going as usual with the intuitive part. Okay, I've got my 8x10 Gel Arts gel plate out there, and those are strips of, I believe, Duralar. It's either Duralar or Yupo paper, some kind of plastic, some kind of synthetic paper. And that's what I use to make the stripes. And why I'm even bothering to do this is because I wanted to get some paint on the roller so that I could start applying it to the board. And I thought, why waste the paint when I can just make some collage paper at the same time? So I laid those down, and when I pull them up there, you will see these very lovely black stripes. And there's a decent amount of paint down on that gel plate, so I can tell right off the bat that I'm going to be able to get 2 good solid prints off of there. So I'm just using a little bit of tissue paper, which is what I like to pull all of my prints with to make my collage papers. And there's one, and you can still see a good bit of wet paint down there. And once I got that good and dried, I was able to get like a second ghost print. There's even actually a little bit left there on my gel plate, but I didn't bother to pull a third print at the moment. I probably will, though, rather than just cleaning it off. So using the roller was how I started, because that's how I made that initial inspiration piece, because it was just a roll-off sheet. But I didn't really like the way it was going on the board, so I got out my 2-inch color shaper and I'm applying the paint that way. Now this is just Liquitex Mars Black, and I don't know exactly where all I want it to go. I just know that I want a lot of that pink covered up. I want it to be maybe 70% black, 30% pink, roughly, and I'm kind of just pulling those numbers out of thin air there, but I wanted more black than pink because black is going to be visually heavier and more pronounced anyway, but I really wanted to push that. So I'm just going to let a little bit of that pink open on that right hand side, because what I'm thinking of doing at this point is going in with some maybe micron pen, doing some fine line work on here as well, because I think that would really lend itself well to everything else that's going on. And with all of that dark black paint everywhere else, that pink is kind of really screaming its head off up there, if you know what I mean. And I think if I put some black ink marks down there, it will kind of quiet everything down and bring it together a little bit better. And since it occurred to me just then that that's what I was probably going to do, I actually started laying some lines in with the paint and the edge of my color shaper. Okay, so once that was all dry, I got myself a jelly pen and a micron pen, and that's what I'm going to do the line work with. I happen to have a jelly pen in almost that exact same shade of aqua that paint is, and I thought that that would actually look pretty good over some of those dark black areas, because that would start to, much in the same way that the pink was being loud up there in the top right hand corner, the black was also loud in its own way, just by being so visually heavy, that I thought a little bit of blue put into that would really just bring everything together and make it a little more visually cohesive. So I'm going in here and I'm going back and forth with the blue pen and with the black pen and just making marks until I am happy with the way everything looks. And as I'm doing this, I'm realizing that that bottom right hand corner where I always sign my pieces is so dark that I would have to sign it with either the blue or something lighter, and I really didn't want to do that. So this piece is going to be signed on the back. So if any of you end up with it, that's where the signature will be. I also do want to thank my latest patron as well. I sold two pieces last week. I'm not going to mention any names because I don't have permission to, but thank you very much. And that was all done through my Etsy shop. There's going to be a link to that in the description as well as to all of my other social media. So check it out. This piece will most likely be posted. I realized that I did not put last week's piece in the Etsy shop, even though I said I was going to. So I do apologize for that, but that's going to be put up in there as well. And I do want to thank all of you that have taken your time out to subscribe and like my videos. It really helps me out so much, and I do want to acknowledge that. I couldn't do all of this without your support, and I really thank you all. So I'm just going in and finishing up a few last little details here, and then once I get all of this ink work done, I think that that's really going to be the end of it, because I looked at it once I was done with the line drawings that I'm doing, and I really didn't think that it needed anything else, and I thought that anything else added to it was just going to make it too busy. That's interesting too. That's a sometimes a difficult part of making art, is knowing when it's done, and that's especially true if you're an abstract or intuitive artist, because there is no clear end time. I mean, if you're drawing an apple, it's done when it looks like an apple. But, if you're doing something like this, then that's not always the case. So you really have to rely on your own instinct to know when your piece is complete. And in just a minute here, I am going to show you the finished piece. I did spray some Krylon crystal clear acrylic glaze to the top of it. And here we have the end result, and I'm really happy with it. I love this color combination. I will probably end up using it again because I really love it so much, but I don't know, you'll have to let me know what you think. I love the black and white striped collage paper. It's one of my favorites. You've definitely seen it before if you've watched a lot of my videos. I use it quite a bit, and that will keep popping up as well. But yeah, there it is, and I thank you all so much for joining me again today. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I look forward to being back with you again next week. Take care.